All right, so we did composition of functions yesterday, which was putting them together to make a new function. Now we're doing the reverse. We are decomposing functions to find the original functions. The thing about these is that there could be more than one possible answer, just depending on how you choose to break down the problem. So, okay. So number 24, we have y is equal to, in parentheses, x cubed plus 1 squared. So we're looking for f of g of x. So I want to know what g of x is and then what f of x is. So with one like this, okay, a general rule is that your g of x is always what's inside the parentheses. So everything inside is going to be your g of x, and then the outside is going to be your f of x. So with that, our g of x would be equal to x cubed plus 1. And we put in g of x for x and f of x when we do the other way, so that would mean that f of x has to be what?
The squared.
X squared. So f of x would be x squared. So f of g of x is when we plug g of x into f of x, we replace it, and so that would be one option. Now, another option of what you could have done is you could have said something like g of x is equal to x cubed, and f of x is equal to x plus 1 squared. That would have also been a sufficient answer for this one. Okay, so that's what I mean. There could be multiple options, because if you take g of x and plug it in for x and f of x, you would get the same thing.
Oh.
So that's what I'm saying. There could be multiple answers. So typically I try to write what I think everybody's going to do when I make my test key. If for some reason like somebody doesn't have that, I try to go look and make sure like it still works, but every once in a while I don't catch one. And it actually did work. So if I ever mark one wrong of these and you're like, no, I really think it's right, show it to me and I'll check it and fix it. 26. Y equals 1 over x cubed minus 5x plus 3. So what do y'all want, or what do you think g of x should be? And just remember, whatever you pick for g of x, as long as you could replace, like, you could put an x there and replace that with all of that, it works.
F is 1 over x, and then g of x is x cubed minus 5x plus 3.
Yep.
How do you read it?
You just literally take whatever can be, like, substituted for x. So, like, I don't know if that makes sense.
So how I said, like, typically everything inside of a parentheses would be your g of x, and then everything outside is going to be your f of x. With a fraction one, it's pretty much whatever's in your denominator. So it would be like your denominator would be your g of x,
Okay.
and then the whole thing would be your f of x.
Oh.
It's usually easier to find your g of x first. Another acceptable answer, just in case anyone else had something different, you could have said that f of x was 1 over x plus 3, and then that g of x was x cubed minus 5x. Because when I take x cubed minus 5x and plug it in for x, that would still give me back what I started with. So, I personally would do whatever I'm writing in blue, but the red is another acceptable answer. So, 28. Y equals e to the sine of x. Thoughts about this one? So thinking about when I said originally something that is in a parentheses, something that's in the denominator, what do you think about an exponential one? What do you think your g of x should be? The exponent. So g of x would be sine of x, meaning f of x is what?
E to the x.
Yep, e to the x. This one doesn't really have anything else that it could be, technically. I mean, well, there probably is, but nothing that really makes sense to do.
Wow.
Like bounce on the table.
All right, one more of these, and then we have one more little thing in this section, and then that's it for this section. All right, 30. Y equals tangent of x, and that whole thing is squared, plus 1.
F of x could be x squared plus 1,
Yeah,
and then
g of x
could
would be tangent
to x.
Yep, g of x would be tangent of x then.
I'm getting it now.
I think these are easier than what we did yesterday.
Uh-huh.
It's just getting used to, like, the rules, like, of, okay, like, what is going to work. And always, like, plug it back in. I mean, you always should check, but, like, always plug it back in to check.
Plug it back in? Can you just like check one?
Yeah, so, like, then if I wanted f of g of x here, then I say anywhere, so I'm going to cover this up. So anywhere that I see x and f of x, I'm putting tangent of x. So then that would be tangent of x squared plus 1. And then I can uncover and say, okay, it matches. So. All right, the last thing in this section is to find two functions defined implicitly by the given relation. It just means, like, solve for y. So
Why can't you just say solve for what?
But even though for y, therefore.
Ew.
but keep in mind, it's got to be two functions.
Okay.
Okay, so x plus y squared equals 25. So how would I go about solving for y?
Move x to the
Okay, so y squared equals 25 minus x. So what does y equal?
Y equals square root of 25 minus
Is that the whole answer?
Plus or minus?
Plus or minus?
Actually.
Two equations.
I usually get. Oh, so we have to make it through equation.
No, I'm saying that is your two.
Okay.
The positive and the negative one are your two.
Gotcha.
So these are just solve, and literally all of them are going to be like that because they're all like y squared something.
Oh. Nice.
So, we okay with that?
I think I'm okay with that.
Okay, cool. All right, so adding on to what you had yesterday, and then you'll submit all together 23, 25, 29, and 37. One other thing with the ones of splitting the stuff up, the decomposing ones, absolute value bars we treat the same way as parentheses.
Okay.
Okay, so yeah, anything like inside the absolute value would be, just because that's a different one than what we had. If you had a radical, the same thing of anything under the radical, okay, anything that kind of is considered like a grouping symbol would be what you would use there. So, okay, so that section's done.